In the recent year-end letter from CIG, CEO Chris Roberts said something many people would agree with. If the game ran well, people would love it. While this is true, there are some downsides to focusing just on playability. Regardless, this is the anthem from CIG going forward. Championed primarily by Chris Roberts and Richard Tyrer, the senior game director, there are several key reasons to believe this could actually be the name of the game in 2025. And this year may actually be able to build on 2024 to become the most influential year for Star Citizen so far, and when more players may actually start to enjoy the experience. Huge management and team restructuring behind the scenes, key technological achievements like server meshing, the Vulkan API, and the beginning of the economy. An experimental branch meant to rigorously test features before they are released, and a return to 4 updates released a year. The message is clear: CIG wants to focus on one thing this year: player enjoyability, getting you into the game to play and stay. So today I'm going to show you what Star Citizen's short-term future looks like, why this pivot point for CIG is different from previous times, and why we may actually have a really good playable experience by year's end. This is the game plan for 2025. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. If you want to get to the specific gameplay changes I think we might see, check out the chapters in this video down below. Otherwise, let's talk about company restructures and the new development practices being employed. If you watched my previous video, then you know the long-term setup that has led to 2025. If you haven't, I'd check it out. Because we can see quite a bit of unified messaging around this idea of playability, of course, but also on the restructuring of teams, moving away from specialized teams, centralizing production, and moving towards a more traditional development and release structure. Something that many lovers and detractors of Star Citizen have wanted to see, in a way, for a while. Many players are tired of consistently delayed features, unpredictable stability and performance, and a general lack of congruency in the development. And at 12 years into development, some may argue it's actually too late. But what's been built here hasn't just been Star Citizen. They've been building the studios, developing the game engine, and creating the other game, Squadron 42. And these have also led to some of the delays. And I think up until now, they have not been in a good position to move on from the move fast and break things model of development. There have been some pretty major breakthroughs in the game engine they're developing in the tech side recently, and also coming up in the near future, that I think changes things. Systems like PES and server meshing, the goal set out in 2018, eliminate scalability concerns, allowing this game to start moving towards becoming an MMO, while the dynamic economy and advanced AI create the potential for deeply engaging player experiences. I'm talking not just balances of what things cost, but also risk and reward calculations, now showing players much better payouts when they're running missions that ask for more. Genesis is aimed at making full planet creation scale up from the tech that was introduced in 2017 in order to help make star systems faster. The resource network, conceptualized back in 2013 and introduced in development in 2020, is finally functional in outposts and ships, controlling power management, gravity, and life support. Crafting and base building add dimensions to just about everything in the game, and supply a much more cohesive meeting point for all gameplay styles and mechanics in the game, which we'll get to later. The game renderer finally supports the Vulkan API, future-proofing the game and allowing for further optimization and features like clouds, DLSS, FSR, ray tracing, and other improvements to the game's looks. The list goes on and on for long-term goals that have all been coalescing at the same time. Even the UI in this game is starting to come together for several systems in ways it just hasn't before. But timing isn't everything. CIG has had a lot of tech before, but they shipped their alpha implementations of features in ways that needed fixes, changes, or got immediately called out by players as having avoidable errors. Under their siloed team structure, specialized teams like the actor feature, UI, or vehicle feature team worked independently on their respective components. This often resulted in mismatched expectations, where a feature might technically work, but lacked usability, integration with other systems, or a cohesive player experience. This results in gameplay that is fun or works in the game, but still leaves you feeling like there's a lot of potential, and specifically, it feels still disconnected from the rest of the game. Mining doesn't naturally lead to cargo hauling. Mercenary work doesn't lead to opportunities for medics. Nobody is exploring to find the minables or salvageables for others to exploit, and various UI are not very consistent across the game either. Everything feels separated, still alpha level implementation, not necessarily delivered all from the same handbook, and based around a culture of testing rather than playing.
Now don't get me wrong, we have a lot of gameplay already in the game, but it's in isolated pockets. It's like if you want to just be a miner, great, you can go and do mining, you can do that loop, but I want the connections, I want the interwebbing. That's the difference between features and content and a game, and I want to push towards that as quickly as possible.
This is what will be changing in 2025. It's not necessarily about the features we will be seeing. CIG has given next to no specific messaging about that, a huge change from just about every other year previously. No, instead, they're louder on messaging about structural changes, managerial changes, and a change in the philosophy behind Star Citizen's short-term development. This is the first major change we're seeing. Many of the teams at CIG are being restructured from their solo focus approach as discussed before, with a multitude of devs looking solely at the actor features or the vehicle features, to a more multidisciplinary approach. So when the gameplay teams are shipping their cargo hauling features, there's going to be a UI designer poking them every day to add search and filter features for the build, because that's just something that the UI people would think of that they might not have been there to do previously, at least early on in the process. While the previous model of specialized teams allowed for a very experimental, fast-moving, and foundational approach, Star Citizen is seemingly moving out of that phase of development and into one a bit more calmer, traditional, and possibly a bit slower. But slower isn't what it sounds like. See, those multidisciplinary teams are focused on content delivery, missions, interlinking functionality, in-game rewards, and proper location functionality should hypothetically be developed in line with these features now, allowing the game content players will enjoy to be developed hand in hand with the people making the actual features that use them. Something that we've actually heard before.
We wanted to create a closer relationship between the feature teams and the level designers, who are basically the people who are using, they're essentially the client who are utilizing these features.
Another thing CIG wants to do is return to the normal structured 4 updates a year, something players became very used to from 2018 to 2021, but as soon as 3.18 hit, things got completely thrown and haven't returned to normalcy for 3 years due to PES, the replication layer, and server meshing. Now we've reached a milestone where it seems they want to return to quarterly updates, which, under this new method of work, I think will include smaller amounts of features that are more efficiently packaged into content drops, and make more sense than the hodgepodge of features we sometimes get before. But this is the most important part of this whole strategy. Starting from April of 2025, are Star Citizen's updates more cohesive, more polished, and more intuitive? Or is it still all the same? Finally, one of the most notable changes coming in 2025 is the introduction of a more refined testing pipeline. We've seen this used with instances like 4.0 testing and some of the earlier features last year, but in 2025 it's going a step further. By isolating features in an experimental PTU environment before integrating them into the live game, CIG has significantly reduced the risk of new features breaking existing systems and ruining the update experience for players. Now a feature will be introduced to the public in the experimental PTU, but it will sit in that phase for possibly more than a quarter, so it can be tested in the live build with everything that could complicate the launch of the feature without actually affecting the gameplay experience you guys would be getting. This approach reflects a broader commitment to stability and polish, a welcome shift from the sometimes chaotic updates of previous years. But the challenge with all of this will be balancing these new practices with the project's ambitious vision and catalog of features, ensuring that this restructuring supports rather than compromises the more systemic features Star Citizen aims to deliver. I would say that the company here is not the same CIG that has tried to make shifts in its development style in the past, for better or for worse. The combination of completed technical milestones, streamlined team structures, a renewed focus on quarterly updates, and seemingly somebody put in the position to make it all happen, makes 2025 feel like a genuinely pivotal year for this project. While I thought last year would contain all the changes needed to make it a pivot point, the delays of server meshing, economy rebalance, and a new star system took away from that aspect. But it's not just about the gameplay. For the first time, CIG actually has the tools, the leadership, and the processes in place to shift from endless experimentation to tangible delivery. Does that mean skepticism is unwarranted? No, but the progress made in 2024 suggests that CIG is finally learning how to execute, outside of a couple blunders. The refocus on time-focused updates, the use of the EPTU, the restructured teams, and a pledge to playability may be just what Star Citizen needs right now. If there's ever been a year that Star Citizen was in the spotlight to see some substantial progress towards its actual vision, it's 2025. As always though, don't believe it until you see it, but keep an eye out for it this year. Something special actually might happen. In the meantime, let's look at how the actual gameplay you play might change during that time. Going into 2025, we actually don't know much about what is specifically planned for the game. Of all the gameplay we know about, have seen, and have heard of, we only know that base building and monster hunting in Pyro are planned in the next 12 to 18 months. I could tell you several things that almost guaranteed to come in that period of time as well, like the engineering system, new missions, the new quantum travel system, the Nyx star system, new weapons, new ships, new factions, and advancements in reputation. But those are all just educated guesses. None of it has actually been confirmed yet. Like I said before, this is very different from what they've done in the past. So we aren't sure how gameplay would change in 2025, but like Chris said at the beginning of this video, if the game ran well, people would be playing it. And you've also said just as much in my own polls. So we can take a look at what's available now and consider how the game around existing gameplay, given the change in focus on development we're seeing at the company, some of the latest feature advancements and things I definitely know are coming in the next year, and how the professions might play if the game gets really good stability this year. Let's start with cargo hauling and trading. Right now, you can either check the prices of commodities at various locations and buy low, sell high at various levels of capacity. The scale that this occurs at is still extremely low, all things considered, and things are not incredibly dynamic, but you will find reliable price discrepancies between the new, more dangerous Pyro system and the relatively safer Stanton. The information is not available to you in the game yet, but you can easily find websites that are tracking some level of supply and demand, profit margins, etc. There is also a black market with particular locations you can sell at. You can benefit from using different ships for different types of hauling. And the gameplay itself is applied with tractor beams, various tools available to you, and the ability to split the job up amongst friends in creative ways. We are still missing more specialized cargo types though. I do believe that the new focus on economy, along with the new star system and the cargo refactor, will make this a very interesting type of gameplay in 2025. On the other side of things, hauling boxes through contracts for companies sees you basically driving UPS for various clients for anything from a few hundred kilos of scrap metal to multiple tons of medical supplies or methane. The list of commodities has grown to over 80 different materials, elements, consumables, and illicit substances. You'll eventually start to find the routes you like through these missions and transition into the trading we were just talking about. But this is a better starter choice just because you don't have to risk your own money. And as a new addition, it offers an easy way to get a feel for the verse in a low pressure environment, while also being able to build your reputation and progress through the profession itself with the various companies throughout the game. In the following year, I would hope we see more shifting prices, the in-game rewards we're still waiting for from CitizenCon 2023, and a focus on high-value, low-capacity cargo. I do think that's really missing from the profession. Mining is an interesting one. As the longest present industrial profession, it is the most developed, but because it came out earlier in this game's development, it's still missing things like missions and reputation support, which means there isn't much visible progression in doing it outside of money and your enjoyment, which may be all you need, but mining is due for an update. Regardless, it is well developed, and if CIG can indeed get base building or crafting of any sort into the game this year, it will completely transform the profession. At that point, missions are appreciated for introducing and grounding the profession, but the amount of motivation to mine different materials goes up quite a bit once that happens. This could start a mining boon, which could call for cargo haulers and of course security forces, and this is just one look at the impact base building and crafting will have in the game. Outside of that, mining is already changing, with new more valuable materials spawning in the new system if you feel like trying for them. I did some ice mining in the outer reaches of the Pyro system for a couple hours straight, and flying smart, I didn't get attacked at all. From what we've heard, this resource scattering will be changing at some point as well. Not sure if it'll be this year, but it is in line with resource quality, which is linked to crafting. we should see all deposits change from multi-material rocks to singular material rocks that vary in quality. This quality will translate from mining to refining to crafting, and ultimately it will affect the quality of the items you use. So you can see how the choices you make at the very beginning of the manufacturing process and mining will affect the ultimate outcome several possible game loops later when you're using it to shoot someone in a contested zone. Again, crafting is a big change, and this will change the way folks look for and collect minerals. It's also possible we finally see mining missions in the game via contracts in 2025, but we have no reason to believe it will happen. Bounty hunting in this game is extremely straightforward and has been since 3.0 really. Take a bounty, fly to the location, kill the marked ship. Sometimes you'll need to fight on the ground though, so watch the description. This is for those who want to make money shooting spaceships. You'll start easy with a certification mission in whatever jurisdiction you're in. Then you'll get easy targets for a while. One ship with 1 or 2 wingmates and simple ships. You can take out the target and flee, or spend time getting some more experience, but that's really all there is to it. You can move up in reputation, but there aren't any unique rewards, locations, or opportunities to unlock. Things can get interesting when you start taking player bounties, which will look pretty obvious next to the AI-generated names, but bounty hunting is still really hurting for an update, and unfortunately, I'm not confident it'll see one in 2025. Mercenary Work is your FPS combat, and it's generally a thriving option, even if the missions are busted. This is because even if things don't work out, you'll still get a good chance to experience most of what the game has to offer combat-wise. And you'll get some loot out of it that you can sell. With some of the improvements from last year to the FPS experience, it's playing better, but with proper stability, this would likely be a pretty good experience for the genre. Not only does the AI improving in 4.0 and general stability improvements from server meshing show good signs when it works, but we're also seeing more locations in the game you can take these missions, and they also correspond to reputation progression. Arena Commander may also see some key updates now that the game is seeing more stability, hopefully with the anticipated Horde mode that would have you fighting endless waves of FPS NPCs, much like Pirate Swarm but on the ground. What might be changing the game for Merc Work in the PU are more in-game rewards achieved by dungeon crawling in the Pyro system. Besides this, there are possibilities we'll see even more rare or exclusive loot placed in the game this year with new armor and weapons in the works that we saw last year. FPS radar and scanning will likely improve the experience this year as well, and FPS AI are getting smarter, reacting to dynamic cover and developing more nuanced perception settings, possibly hinting at more stealth opportunities in the near future. One major part of the game that I think affects everything, but I think FPS especially, is voice comms. We've seen some talk of improved voice comms, and we know that they want to redo and introduce the comms and social app respectively, but if they want to do it all at once, I worry we won't actually see a comms related update this year. And I think the status of VoIP in this game really needs to take a step up in 2025. Salvage in 2025 is already a pretty decent time for the folks that do it. Very calming, relaxing, and methodical. You can do it solo or in groups, picking up construction materials or RMC, taking the haul back and forth, or teaming up with the hauler and spending long hours in the black. It also makes good money, but how could it change in 25? Well, besides overall stability making a difference, I'm thinking if we see both scanning and quantum boosting updates in 2025, the process of scanning and tracking these derelicts might change quite a bit. As more ships get their due updates, we are also going to be seeing the component salvage from vessels become more common, besides just the scraping and the hull crunching. With engineering, gameplay ships will rarely explode from now on, and will usually just be disabled. This means a lot more salvage and money potential after battles too, and if materials do gain their value for base building and crafting, we could see salvagers actually getting the unique materials from the carcasses of ships. I'm talking elements like steel, titanium, or gold. There's a lot of potential for this gameplay, and of course the hull crunching gameplay will change with Maelstrom as well, but I don't even want to get your hopes up about Maelstrom possibly coming this year. I don't know what's going on with that. As it is, we could see a multitude of big changes coming to Salvage to make it more playable, or just maybe 1 or 2, but I think we will see the experience changing this year. Now, you might not believe there's exploration gameplay in Star Citizen, and you'd be right if you wanted to get paid, but you may not know how close it is to reality. With these unique deposits, material rarity, component salvage, and unique loot all becoming more prominent in Star Citizen, more people are going to be willing to pay to find it. Or as the explorer, you could just take all the goods for yourself and then sell those. All we need in 2025 for this to be possible is the ability to save and share waypoints on the star map, and exploration takes off. Along with Quantum Boost allowing you to travel anywhere and a refactored scanning and ping system on ships, improved playability could mean people who like looking for things could have a way to fund their addiction this year. Unfortunately, medical gameplay is pretty light right now. While players can manage drug levels to nerf the effects of injuries, and there is some depth and excitement to it on the spot, this is only good for group gameplay. Solo medics still can't find missions to heal NPCs, and rarely get medical beacons. Of course, we could talk again about the reputation system and how it's needed for those medical beacons to make more sense, but with the RSI Apollo possibly scheduled to release this year, there are also some signs that we could see something substantial. The same goes with crafting possibilities, with the ability to make medications or other types of things. But as far as the nitty-gritty medical gameplay of healing goes, we don't have much to go by for this year. In 2025, Piracy will likely flourish. With a new star system that has no comms system, crime is pretty easy. And if CIG can get AI to function in-game in space, players are going to have a multitude of targets. But that's a big if. Regardless, the system still offers a lot of opportunities in the drug trade, in exploiting cargo haulers, and in outpost raiding. Though I think like many other professions, this will continue to be hurt by the lack of reliable VoIP. I would also say, with ships going from time to kill to time to disable, pirates are going to need to get a lot better at boarding action and negotiating. Refueling has been toast for a while. Not only has it not worked well due to the state of the game, you can't even adequately request a refuel in-game. You have to type into global chat, which is crazy. So besides the simple fix of giving us back beacons that allow us to actually use these features, refueling could be, in the meantime, something orgs make good use of, especially in Pyro. When ships can reliably refuel, it gives those players something to do for their gameplay, balancing prices, locations, and how much they're willing to sell. It allows events to run for longer, and operations to run a little more streamlined when mining or salvaging for long amounts of time. So that's all good on the group side of things. But until beacons are in the game or players can assign missions and tasks to one another, this is just very dead as a community activity. Luckily, we have heard talk about this system getting some work, but no signs it'll happen in 2025. Regardless, just the added stability that we'll see from server meshing and fixing some of the bugs in the refueling department could help the gameplay out a lot more this year, though I don't think we'll be seeing missions anytime soon. Finally, engineering and repair. The biggest and really only major gameplay addition we know for sure is landing in 2025. Engineering was delayed from 4.0, leading many players to call 4.0 an empty patch. I know. But when the feature does come in the future, it will completely change our ability to make our ships last longer. Repairing it, replacing parts, running maintenance, it'll all be in our hands to define how our own ship performs. This will introduce a real feeling of belonging in home, but also enhance our multi-crew gameplay, our combat, trade, salvage, and ship customization. It's a big change on its own with ships, but it also will be found in outposts, cities, and space stations. Fuses are now a new currency in the game, and managing the power systems of various locations will lead to new missions, tasks, and opportunities for players across both Pyro and Stanton in 2025, offering likely one of the largest expansions in unique gameplay we've ever seen in the game, and introducing the maintenance worker as a new profession. A major moment for Star Citizen, and a big proving point for the Resource Network. A lot of this could still go wrong this year, and I'm sure we will see some deadlines missed and natural problems of development arise. A company like this, that's been working like this for this long, doesn't make a transition this significant without a couple issues. But I do think this is CIG's final chance to really solidify the structure of the company into something that can deliver and maintain both of these games at the massive scale they want to do, and the game engine behind them. Skepticism remains a defining factor in Star Citizen's story. The community has seen bold claims before, only to be let down by delays and incomplete features. For many players, 2025 feels kinda like the last chance for CIG to demonstrate that they can turn the vision into reality. The technology's finally there, the leadership has made critical adjustments, and the framework for delivery is in place. Now, it's all about execution. I think this is a great move for the company and the game if they can pull it off. If 2025 succeeds, it won't just mark a good step forward for Star Citizen, it could be a bit of a redemption arc for a project that has struggled at times with credibility. But the margin for error here is pretty small. Each patch, each feature, and each communication this year is going to be pretty heavily scrutinized after the last few. The stakes couldn't be higher and the expectations couldn't be clearer. 2025 must be the year Star Citizen begins to fulfill its promises, not just in potential, but in practice. It's time to shift the focus from the game engine to the game, and for us, from testing to play. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. It's another one of those long ones, but I hope it sets your expectations for 2025 and things go well from here. I hope you learned something in this one, and I'll catch you in the next.